Get it. All right, tribe, it's time to get cold. So let me know what your experience has been with cold exposure, especially if you're carnivore and you do cold exposure, cold plunges, things like that. My experience has been very good, but it comes with a catch. So that's what I'm going to kind of talk about as I ease into this cold, cold water. It's like mid-October here in Kentucky. Hasn't been that warm, like lower 70s during the day, low 50s at night, close to 40. So the water's getting pretty cold. Now I always try to do this and keep a straight face because that lets me know that I'm in control and my body's not in control. So I think the key is either just to go like full in, just all the way, or ease yourself into it so you can kind of adjust. I kind of like taking a gradual approach. Oh yeah, that's really good. But my experience with cold exposure, so when I first started healing on Carnivore, after I got really, really sick, you know, I started reading about all the benefits that cold exposure can have. And specifically, I learned about it from Wim Hof. I watched a Yes Theory video, Seeking Discomfort, and they went and visited Wim Hof, and they went and, you know, he put them straight into cold exposure, and they started doing cold plunges. I think like the first or second day they were there. Then he had them hike a mountain with them and stuff. And it really intrigued me, especially after I read more about Wim Hof and all the things he was able to accomplish. You know, basically in his underwear, like climbing Everest and doing all this crazy stuff. And, you know, there was another thing about Wim Hof too, where they injected him with a strand of E. coli. And I think it was him and some other patients that he had been training to see what their immune response to it would be. And they found out that their body pretty much rejected the E. coli, and they were basically resistant to it. Whereas the patients that hadn't been doing the cold exposure training got very, very sick. But Wim Hof and, you know, the guys he'd been training, it really didn't affect that much. So anyway, reading through all this, I got very intrigued. So I bought Wim Hof's book, and I started practicing his cold exposure methods. And I must say that I had some pretty good success with it. So one of the most, I guess, profound benefits I noticed from it is the amount of mental clarity it gives you, the boost that it gives you. It just makes you, I guess I would say it just makes you really sharp is about the best way I would describe it. But it really puts you in control of your body and in control of your emotions. As a matter of fact, that's why Wim Hof started doing it, because his wife passed away. And he was so devastated and depressed that exposing himself to the ice cold water was the only way to basically cope with it, because that's the only thing he could think about. So, you know, there were times where I'd get stressed out at work or stressed out with life, trying to heal, that kind of stuff. And if I had something coming up where I knew I was going to be stressed, I would start doing cold exposure about 2 weeks leading up to that. And what that would do for me is it would really put me in control of my emotions. I could really hone in on focusing and just really controlling my mental state. So whenever that time came, you know, for that stressful situation, it was like a walk in the park, because I'd already trained myself to not let really anything outside physically affect me. And it gave me such a strong state of like mental clarity and focus. It's almost hard to describe. But I would say that it lowered my overall anxiety, my overall stress, and really just put me in control of my emotions and of my mental state in general. So that's probably the most profound thing I noticed. As far as health benefits go, I can't say that I noticed any real profound health benefits from it. And I think that's where the caveat and the catch would come in for me, is that when I was, you know, doing Carnivore and I was doing these cold plunges for like the first year or two that I was Carnivore, I was also doing intermittent fasting. I was doing the cold plunges, you know, I was doing Carnivore, I was working out all the time. And all that stuff is quite a bit of stress on the body. You know, when you're doing one or two of those things, maybe like Carnivore and working out, or Carnivore and fasting, intermittent fasting, that's probably good. And I would say that could have a lot of health benefits. But when you stack all those things together, I found that it was just a little bit too much stress for my body. And what ended up happening is, after doing that for a while, I felt myself just getting really run down, low on energy. I could tell it kind of took a hit to my central nervous system. And I believe there was probably a lot more cortisol buildup than there should have been, just because of all that stress on my body. And I ended up getting sick. I caught a cold and stuff around that time frame, which after going carnivore, I never got sick. For like the first, I don't know, at least the first year, maybe 2 years I was carnivore, I never got sick. And then, you know, doing these cold plunges and all this stuff, I ended up catching a pretty bad cold. So I found that, you know, weaning off that and just doing this occasionally works really well for me, especially if I have stressful situations, or if I just need to hone in on my mind and kind of refocus my thoughts and all that stuff. This can be very, very beneficial for that. And it's also very invigorating. So one of my favorite things to do is after a workout, I'll run upstairs and I'll do a cold shower. And it works very well in the wintertime, because the water coming into your house in the wintertime is much colder than it is throughout the summer. So if you do that in the winter, and especially after, you know, a really hard workout and you're sweaty and hot, jump in a cold shower and it just wakes you up so fast. It is so reinvigorating, and you come out of that feeling like Superman, like you can take on the world. You're full of energy, and it just really boosts everything about your body, your mental state and your physical state. So overall, my experience with cold plunges has been really good. This right here feels fantastic. I was doing some work earlier, cutting grass, things like that, and after working, I mean, this is great. And if you can do cold plunging in a body of water, you're essentially grounding yourself as well, because water is a very good conductor. So just exposing yourself to nature and getting that water around you, it just kind of pulls that excess energy from you and lowers your stress so much. I mean, just being around water in general is enough to lower your stress, but when you expose yourself to it, especially when it's cold, it amplifies that quite a bit. So I have not yet done this in a natural body of water in the middle of winter, but this year I think I'm actually going to try it. And I'm going to try and do it with snow on the ground, so I know it's really cold. So we'll see how that pans out. But definitely let me know in the comments what your experience with this has been. I'm just very, very curious if you've noticed any positive benefits, or if you've experienced any of the negative things that I've experienced. But I'm going to spend a little bit more time in this cold, cold water. And then I'm going to play some fetch with my dog, who is back here hunting animals or whatever she's doing. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to like, subscribe, join the Apex tribe, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace out.